A friend of mine shared that name with me, and I think it's appropriate for our talk today. We'll just call it Doggy Dharma. It's I remember when I first started to practice, and I was introduced to Buddhism in 2009. Certain practices were pretty tough for me. One of them was when practicing loving kindness, and I came to a part where I would think of myself or envision myself, and I would practice loving kindness towards myself before I went to other people, family members, friends. And as one teacher advised, eventually someone who I considered an enemy, or someone who I had been at odds with. And I remember at that beginning stage, when I would practice, and I would, at the beginning, when I would start with myself, I used to find that pretty tough. I found it pretty tough, and at practicing loving kindness towards myself. And I thought, today I think that's pretty interesting. I thought it was pretty interesting then that I found it so difficult. And I remember I spoke to my teacher at that time, and I shared with him what I was experiencing during my practice of loving kindness. And after listening to me, he then shared with me that I should take my time and start slow and work myself a little more and more in the practice. And then as I started to get a little bit better at expressing love and kindness towards myself, he then recommended to, as I moved on to family members and friends and strangers and people in the US, people outside in other countries, and then he invited me or challenged me to think of people I was in odds with. But he first had me start with those that he recommended would be a little easier for someone who was just starting off, like myself at that time. And now moving forward to when I was in the year before I came home, which was in 2019. I was in the dog training program, and in the facility that I was housed in at the time. And I remember something interesting happened when I was in the program and finally got to see a dog after 24 years of not having seen a dog. And the few times that I did see a dog, it was typically either on television or it was shown occasionally. They worked for the facility. And so now that that I was in the program, in the dog training program, there was dogs appointed to a team of 2 trainers. There was 2 trainers per dog. And I remember as I was assigned to my first dog, I remember how easy it was for me to practice loving kindness with a dog. And I would take care of the dog. I would change its water, give it food at certain hours in the morning, then in the evening. If the dog used the restroom in its crate, I remember, even though in the moment I thought, oh my goodness, it didn't make it to, it needed to go to the restroom. I remember it didn't last that long for me to go to thinking of how can it's time for clean up the crate. Let me make it a clean environment for the dog. So it was, I would transition fairly quickly to taking care of the dog, cleaning up after the dog, whether it was bathing it, if he used the restroom in his crate, cleaning up the crate so that dog can be comfortable inside the crate, because as many of us know that has had pets, dogs don't like to be sitting on or inside of a crate that they use the bathroom in. So I would right away clean after him or her. It was a female dog, at my first dog in the program, and it reminded me to the practice of loving kindness. And I remember when talking with someone on the yard that wasn't in the program, and they asked me if it was okay for them to pet the dog that I was training. I first shared with them the training that we were doing with the dog, and if they were follow the rules that we had already set up in place for the dog in his training, that they were welcome to. That person was welcome to pet the dog and interact with the dog, as long as it followed these same training methods that we were using. And they were that person was very excited, and I remember thinking, this is an opportunity for this person to experience or practicing loving kindness, and with a living being that potentially would make it easier for him to do this practice with. Having spent 24 years at that point in prison, from the age from the age of 17, I know from personal experience that I started to practice hiding my emotions from other people, and it was something that I was doing as a younger person before I was incarcerated, but in prison I was doing it more. I was doing it more, that I would conceal my emotions. I wouldn't, express that sort of kindness like I would with the dog. So I wondered if very likely this person has experienced something very similar because of the environment, not wanting to be perceived a certain way by demonstrating this to another human being. So I thought, okay, this is similar to the practice of loving kindness, and maybe it is easier for this person to practice it with this pet, as opposed to a human being that he's already trained himself to hide these emotions from. And maybe this person has been doing it for so long that it's tough for him to do it, to have this practice, or have a practice where he's expressing these emotions of loving kindness towards himself. And so I thought to myself, this is a great opportunity when training out in the yard, in the facility, where there's a lot of people who haven't seen a dog for so long, and they're all asking, can they interact with the dog? And a lot of them, I was talking to them for the first time because of the dog. They would come up to me and they would ask me questions about the dog, and after sharing with them how if they could please approach the dog a certain way before interacting with him or her, and they would. And then very interestingly, the person would then light up and start baby talking the dog, or behaving a certain way around the dog, and softening and showing the side of themselves that perhaps they hadn't shown to another person in the facility, however long they've been incarcerated, for a very long time. So I thought this was very interesting, but a great opportunity to begin inserting in a person's day as many times as possible, when out in the yard with my dog that I was assigned to train, an opportunity for individuals to have an opportunity to practice loving kindness with a living being that could possibly make it easier for them to let down their guard and practice. And even if it came later for them to build up some awareness that they were actually practicing this, that they were doing something that they had learned to hide and conceal for such a long time. Maybe when they were still living in the home of their family. Uh, as many young men have been brought up not to cry and hide your emotions, or don't. And so I thought that was a very good practice. Today, on this past Sunday, I adopted my a puppy, a 3.5-month-old puppy. And again, I was reminded more recently of the same practice. And today, I hand feed my puppy for breakfast and his dinner. There's several reasons why I do that. They're connected to training. And one of them also is so I could teach him to eat slow. I have control of how fast or how fast he eats or how slow he eats. And but I'll sit with him however long it takes him to finish his meal. And that sort of patience, again, I noticed that it's easier for me to practice with my dog, who the moment that I'm with him, this this love, unrestricted love, just opens up. And I remember when it reminds me when I first started to get, I started getting into my practice in practicing different sort of practices, a little bit at a time, Buddhist practices. I started to prostrate in the morning. I would prostrate 108 times in the morning after I would wake up, 108 times before I went to bed at night. Then I started to chant. I started putting in chants throughout my day. I started to meditate daily, and I started to notice that the more gradually, the more practices I started to insert in my day, although I'm still very much in the beginning stages, I believe, in my practice, I started to gradually over time see improvement in my practice. I started to experience happiness. I started to experience happiness showing up in my day. Then I started experiencing it showing more frequently. So when I think back to those days when I had I was inserting more and more practices in my Buddhist practice in each day, I noticed the effect it was having in my experience. Gradually, even a little improvement in the quality of my experience was so moving to me. So today with my pet, feeding him breakfast, feeding him dinner, taking him out to use the bathroom, cleaning up after him, I noticed alongside my other practices that I practice, taking care of him is allowing me to insert in my day practices of loving kindness. In this case, with a dog, although it's giving me an opportunity to just insert more practices of loving kindness that I was doing already. That because of my pet, in each of my days now. So I see my interactions with my pet as another as an opportunity to add a few more practices of loving kindness in my day. And I think it's wonderful it's a wonderful opportunity, especially if other thinking of practicing loving kindness with other beings, if it's more challenging for us. I think that the advice I was giving some years back by a teacher of mine: start slow. Start slow, and in a sense, set yourself up for success. Take small little bites of something that makes it maybe not easy, but easier for us to do. And eventually, if we insert enough of those moments throughout our day to practice maybe loving kindness, after weeks of this, after months of this, after a year or two of this, we could potentially start to see and experience a gradual change. And I think that it would be, we won't be disappointed. And then we can use what's developed, even if it's a little bit. We can use what we've developed into something that's a little bit more challenging. Maybe someone that's treated that was not so nice to us, and someone who probably said something about us that we found offensive. So today's talk, keeping it on theme with pets, I talked about my pet and how he's helped me add a few more, several more moments of practicing loving kindness throughout my day. And perhaps your pet can do the same or similar for you. And that would be my talk for today. Um, um, Hopefully, aside from it being cute because of the with puppies, I hope it was helpful. Just thinking of my day with my pet, uh, makes my cheeks feel gooey. And so thank you for allowing me a chance to share my talk today.